Hey guys, what is going on? It is Brook, or the Undead DM, and I'm back at it again with another video for you tonight. And in this episode of Brook Rants, let me just start off by saying, at the time that I'm recording this on January 20th, it is officially my birthday, so yay me. Go ahead and leave a like if you wish to celebrate with me. If not, that's okay. But with that, let's get started. So, in this episode, I'd like to talk about why spellcasting is so powerful. So, in my opinion, I think spellcasting is so strong because it has to be. Not in the same way that you think, though. It's not a matter of, oh, that spellcasters have to be stronger than martials. It's more of, if you're a spellcaster, and as a spellcaster, you have weak spells, that's not fun. You don't like having weak spells, which is why in 4th edition, a lot of spells were really, not mediocre, but weaker than they are in 5th edition. Because they knew that if, as a wizard, you were going to be casting weak spells, then they needed to be compensated by having, like, good things you could do. Like, Fireball was weaker, but it targeted a save, as opposed to somebody having to make a saving throw against it. That's fantastic. But in 5th edition, they realized that if they made weak spells, like they did in, well, weaker compared to 5th edition, if they made weaker spells, then martials, by comparison, by having all that they had in 4th edition, would be weaker. Or, yeah, no, the casters would be weaker than the martials if they had the same things that they had in 4th edition. And so, what they did is they just made spells match the power of the martials in 4th edition, but then they completely just said, actually, we don't want it to match, we want them to be more powerful than the martials. And so, when they did that, they really fucked up the balance by just saying, you know what, we don't care about balance anymore. Make Fireball 8d6, make Lightning Bolt 8d6, make every single spell deal like ludicrous amounts of damage, and have unique effects for each one. Why not? And I think that's the main problem, is that if they come out with anything strong for martials, the spellcaster characters, like the spellcaster people, you're gonna be like, oh, you're just trying to buff martials and nerf spellcasters. Spellcasters can already do everything. It's called Wizards of the Coast, duh. They're meant to be good. If you don't like it, then don't play the game. But then they don't realize that in other editions that spellcasters weren't as strong. Yes, they were strong in their own way, but they weren't as dominant in the meta as they are in 5th edition. And I think they disregard that. And they just say, oh, well, that was 4th edition, it's no longer 4th edition. You gotta move on, man. It's like, I actually got into a small scuffle with a YouTuber recently about the power of 4th edition and how they were saying that 4th edition died a while ago, but claimed 3.5 to be the better edition, even though it died even later. It's still strange to me, but that's beside the point. But I think spellcasting in 5th edition is inherently broken, because in 4th edition you had things like Burst, Blast, and Wall, and everything fell into one of these two camps, or one of these three camps. If an effect did something, it would either be a Blast, a Burst, or a Wall. It wasn't some area of effect, cone, or sphere. It was one of those three. And if it wasn't one of those three, then it targeted a save by specifically. And that was it. But of course, that's not how 5th edition works. It's not about, hey, we're going to make this, this, and this spell do this, this, and this, and you could just reference it here. It's going to be, every spell is going to be different, but we're going to have similar area of effect rules for certain things. This way everything kind of somewhat makes sense, without taking into account that, maybe certain things shouldn't. Like, why does and I'm trying to think of another area of effects spell that I can't think of right now that's similar to Fireball, like Evar's Black Tentacles, I guess? Like, I don't understand why those two are considered area of effect. They were in 4th edition. I've lost my point. Anyway, in 5th edition, spellcasting is way stronger. And I think if they really want to go forward with 1D&D, and they need to nerf the spellcasters. Because, yes, they're called Wizards of the Coast, and it's a funny meme to say, oh, well, they're called Wizards of the Coast, so clearly the wizard is going to be strong, no duh. But just because it's strong doesn't mean it has to be busted. You can have it be strong without having it be completely and utterly overpowered. But that's just me. Some people like the overpowered spellcaster archetype. I'm okay with it, but at the same time, it's like, but why though? It's like, but why is it that it is the way it is? It doesn't have to be, but they choose for it to be that way. And I think that's because if they didn't, it wouldn't get any, it wouldn't get any buyers. People wouldn't buy 5th edition. If Wizards went overpowered, because they'd be like, well, they're just shafting the Wizard because they don't want to seem like they're playing favorites. It's like, no, it's the exact point. They don't want to show favorites. Because if they show favorites, then that just shows that their bias is going to play into future balancing decisions, which is not okay. But people don't see it that way. They see it more as, well, they're called the Wizards of the Coast, so clearly they have to do something. They have to make some kind of exception for the Wizards. Like, no, we don't. And that's percent. I think spellcasting in 1D&D needs to be nerfed to such a degree that they now have to actually decide what spells they're going to use instead of I cast Fireball, I cast Web, I cast Counterspell, I cast Conjure Animals, because as much as I love those spells, and I do love those spells, I think it's very poor. Am I saying to nerf spellcasting as a whole, and basically make it not worth using over a martial class? Hell, I think everybody should be relatively equal in power to one another. But if you're asking me what I would do personally, I would personally remove half casting as a whole. Bring back 4th edition character rules, because, like I said, I'm going to be running a one-shot for 4th edition, and so far the role system from character creation is really good. It's kind of helping my players understand what roles do what, and it's giving them a nice, I don't want to say sense of creativity, but they're starting to understand that flavor is king. They can reflavor anything as everything. And that's good. That's good, that's what I want. Because up to this point, the players have just been taking everything that I give them at face value. Like, oh, here's a glaive. It's like, oh, okay, cool, it's a glaive. What does it do? It's like, it's a glaive. What do you think it does? And then he's like, I don't know, man. It's like, well, what do you mean you don't? He's like, I don't know, man. It's a glaive. It's a blade with a stick. It's like, well, yeah, obviously, but you could be a little bit more creative. Like, how does your glaive look? What do you want it to represent? Does it even have to look like a glaive? It could just be a really big sword. But they just go, nope, it's gotta be a glaive, because that's what the book says. But with this 4th edition is teaching them that flavor, what you want your character identity to be, is more important. And I think that's fantastic. So how would I do it? I'd get rid of half casting entirely. I would change a lot of the spells, change the area of effect rules back to what they were back in 4th edition, maybe with a little bit more nuance, besides just the basic 3. And then the 4 kinds of targeting, where it was melee, ranged, area, and close. But honestly, if you want a recommendation of how I would fix 1D&D or 5th edition as a whole, as Cybrock has famously said, play 4th edition. 4th edition has a lot of problems, sure, but it's got far less functional problems than 5th edition does. Because in 4th edition there are very clear rules as to what can and cannot be done. And I think that's fine. I think having that, having just the functional rules work is good. And I'm excited to say that if I do end up really liking 4th edition, and my players do too, then I will just switch over to 4th edition, because it's a lot better of a system, it's a lot more fun, but I'm not going to force that on my players. It's like, if they want to, they can. If they don't want to, that's fine. But with that being said, I would like to thank you guys so much for watching this rant. It is a little bit shorter than my previous ones, but I have a lot of work to get done tomorrow, or the day that I'm recording this, and I have to get everything set up. So, thank you so much for watching. I'll see y'all later. Bye.